The last thing Mary remembered before darkness swallowed her was her stepmother's face, twisted with anger, eyes burning like hot coal. But Mary's suffering did not start that night. It had been her life since childhood. Mary was only 18, yet her days felt older than the hills. Her real mother had died when she was very small, and her father, John, later married another woman named Grace. To the people in the village, Grace looked like a gentle trader. She sold palm oil, pepper, and smoked fish in the market. She laughed loudly, greeted everyone kindly, and wore bright wrappers that made her look like a happy, hard-working wife. Neighbors praised her. They said, "Grace is a good woman. John is lucky." But inside the walls of their compound, Grace's heart was darker than midnight. To her, Mary was not a daughter. She was a servant. Every morning before the cock crowed, Mary was already sweeping the yard with tired hands. She carried water on her head from the stream until her neck ached. She washed piles of clothes until her fingers were sore and wrinkled. She pounded yam in the hot sun until sweat soaked her wrapper. And when all the work was done, Grace never said thank you. Instead, she scowled and found another chore. Food was no comfort either. Grace's own children, David and Anna, sat inside eating hot soup with thick meat and soft pounded yam. Mary, after hours of work, was given only cold pap in a broken calabash. She ate outside, alone, while her stomach cried for something better. And if she made the smallest mistake, if a pot cracked, if a broomstick broke, even if the baby cried while Mary was close, Grace's sharp voice rose like thunder. Sometimes she slapped Mary. Sometimes she beat her with a stick. Sometimes she only cursed her with words that cut deeper than wounds. Yet, Mary never told her father. John left for the farm early in the morning and came back late in the evening, shoulders bent with work, his hands rough with the soil. When he came home, all he wanted was food and rest. Mary smiled at him and kept her pain hidden like a heavy stone in her chest. She did not want to burden him. She told herself, one day, things will change. One day, the truth will show. But in her heart, she wondered how long she could endure. That evening, the moon rose full and round in the sky, shining on the compound like the eye of heaven. Mary lay on her thin mat, listening to the rustle of leaves, the cry of crickets, and the whisper of the wind. Sleep refused to come. A strange sound carried through the night, soft voices, low and eerie, like the call of spirits. Mary sat up, her heart beating fast. She crept to the small window, lifted the corner of the mat curtain, and peeped outside. What she saw almost stopped her breath. 4 women, wrapped in black cloth from head to toe, walked slowly across the yard toward the backyard. Their bare feet moved silently in the dust. They held hands, their shadows stretching long under the moonlight. And among them, Mary's blood ran cold, was her stepmother, Grace. "What is this? Why is Mama Grace out at night, dressed like a ghost?" Curiosity pushed her forward. Fear pulled her back. But curiosity won. Quiet as the night breeze, Mary slipped out of the room. She walked barefoot, the ground cool against her feet, careful not to make a sound. She followed them at a distance, hiding behind trees and bushes, her eyes wide and unblinking. The women stopped at the old Iroko tree behind the compound. The villagers said that tree was older than memory itself, older than the village, older than the earth. No one dared cut it down. Children were told never to play near it. It was a place of secrets, and tonight, Mary saw those secrets with her own eyes. The women knelt in a circle under the tree. Grace placed the clay pot in the center. She pulled out a white cock, its feathers ruffled, its beak tied shut. Mary's stomach turned. She watched in horror as her stepmother whispered strange chants and, with a swift hand, cut the bird's throat. Blood spilled into the clay pot, steaming under the moonlight. The women began to clap slowly. One after another, They dipped their fingers into the blood and smeared it across their foreheads, chanting louder now, their voices echoing through the night air. The ground seemed to tremble. The Iroko tree's branches shivered though the wind was still. Mary's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to run, but her feet felt nailed to the earth. Then, something happened that froze her blood. Grace lifted her face, eyes shining red like fire, and spoke words Mary understood clearly. Let the girl's light be covered. Let her joy be buried. Let her star be broken. So shall it be. Mary stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth to stop a scream. The girl. Me. She turned and ran, her legs weak but desperate, her heart pounding louder than the drumming of their chants. She crashed back into the small room, collapsed on her mat, and pulled the ragged blanket over her head. But sleep would not come. From that night, nothing was the same. The next morning, the sun rose bright, but to Mary, the world felt heavy and dark. Grace's face was calm, smiling as she served John his food, as if the midnight ritual had been only a dream. But when her eyes met Mary's, there was a spark there, a warning, a threat. Mary now knew the truth. Her stepmother was not just cruel. She was dangerous. That day, strange things began to happen. When Mary touched the broom snapped in half. When she tried to cook, the fire would refuse to light. Grace shouted at her again and again, beating her with a stick until welts rose on her skin. But the most frightening thing happened at night. Mary lay on her mat, staring at the roof. Suddenly, she heard footsteps outside her window, slow, dragging footsteps. She sat up, her heart racing. The sound came closer, and closer, until it stopped just beside her room. Mary, your days are numbered. She gasped, clutching her chest. She wanted to scream, but no sound left her lips. The whisper rose again, followed by laughter, soft at first, then sharp, cruel, echoing into the night. She ran to her father's room, shaking. Papa, did you hear that? Someone is outside. John blinked awake, confused. He stepped outside, lantern in hand, but there was nothing, only silence and shadows. He sighed. It must be the wind, Mary. Go and sleep. Mary wanted to protest, but Grace appeared in the doorway, her smile thin and sharp. Yes, Mary. Go and sleep. Her voice carried poison. Mary shuddered, retreating into her room. That night, she cried quietly, wishing for her mother who had long been gone, wishing someone would believe her. But the curse had already begun its work. The next morning, when Mary fetched water, her reflection in the river made her gasp. Her eyes, those bright eyes that once sparkled, looked dull and heavy, as if a shadow sat inside them. She touched her face and whispered, "What is happening to me?" Behind her, a voice answered, "It is only the beginning." She spun around, nobody was there. Only the rustle of palm fronds, the call of a crow circling above, and her pounding heartbeat. Mary now knew the truth. The ritual under the Iroko tree was not just a nightmare. Her stepmother's curse had taken root, and the darkness had begun to grow. And this was only the beginning. Night fell heavy on the village. Mary lay on her mat, twisting and turning. Sleep would not come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Grace's face under the Iroko tree, glowing red with fire. She pulled the ragged blanket tighter, whispering a prayer under her breath. Then it started. A sharp pain shot through her stomach, bending her double. She groaned, clutching herself. Another pain struck her arms, her legs, like knives cutting from the inside out. She gasped, her body trembling uncontrollably. Suddenly, her nails lengthened, curling into sharp points. Her skin prickled as coarse hair sprouted across her arms. She opened her mouth to scream, but what came out was not a scream, it was a bleat. A goat's bleat. Mary froze in horror. She stumbled to her feet and ran to the small mirror hanging on the wall. What she saw made her blood turn to ice. Her face was no longer hers. Her eyes had turned yellow, her ears stretched long, and horns began to push through her head. Her voice, her own sweet voice, was gone. Only the sound of a frightened animal came out. No, no, she tried to say, but the words were swallowed, replaced with bleats. Tears ran down her half-human, half-goat face. At that moment, the door creaked open. Grace stood there, her shadow tall and menacing in the moonlight. She smiled, a smile that cut deeper than any knife. "Well, Mary," she hissed, stepping closer. "Now let me see how you will tell your father what you saw." Mary stumbled back, trembling. Her stepmother's eyes glowed red, her voice low and mocking. Grace raised her hand, and a dark smoke curled around her fingers, wrapping around Mary like a snake. Mary tried to fight, but her body was weak, trapped between two worlds, human and beast. Grace laughed softly, the sound cold as iron. "From this night, you are nothing but an animal. Tomorrow, the world will not remember you as John's daughter. They will know you only as a goat to be sold, eaten, forgotten." Mary collapsed, her body fully transformed into a goat. She cried out, but only a bleat escaped. Grace dragged her outside and tied her to a post, the rope cutting into her neck. The night air was cold, and the smell of dust filled her nose. Above, the moon stared down, pitiless. Mary's heart pounded with terror. How will I ever escape? How will I save my father? The rope tightened, the darkness pressed in, and the cruel laughter of her stepmother echoed into the night. For the first time in her life, Mary prayed not for food, not for comfort, but for deliverance from a fate worse than death. And in the shadows, unseen by Grace, something stirred.